Hey everyone, we have the last new card revealed for Constellar and Tellarknight out of Terminal World 3. This is their 5th card, so they're the first archetype to be finished in their wave of support to get revealed. The card is called Stellarnova Bonds, and it's a normal spell card. You can discard a card from your hand, and if you do, special summon one Tellarknight or Constellar monster from your deck with a different type than the monsters you control. You can target face-up cards on your opponent's field up to the number of Tellar or Constellar monsters you control, negate those monsters' effect until the end of this turn. Also, you can't special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn except Xyz monsters. This card is very clearly good because it's either a starter card or an extender. Having to discard for this is completely fine just because Tellarknight and Constellar make a ton of card advantage. They're very easy to swarm the board and get a ton of searches, so the discard is not the problem here. This card has two really big issues. The first one is that it's a normal spell and not a quick play, because that second effect would be really good if this was a quick play, because if you need the card to be an extender or a starter card, you can do that. What you could have done was just set this card for the opponent's turn. Constellar and Tellarknight can put a ton of monsters on your turn, and then you'll be able to negate the monsters on your opponent's turn. You can't do that because this is a normal spell, and that's really sad. Everything about this card would have been almost perfect if it was just a quick play spell instead of a normal spell. This card would have just been fantastic if it was a quick play card, but I guess it's still fine as a normal spell because it is still a starter or an extender. Having to summon a monster with a different type than the monsters you control is also not a problem. I saw a lot of people complaining about this, but it's not an issue. Castor is a fairy, Sagnag is a warrior, and Caduceus is a spellcaster, so as you can see, this is not going to be an issue for Constellar because if you start the combo with Castor and that gets interrupted, you just use Stellarnova Bond to get Sagnag. Alternatively, if your Sagnag gets interrupted, you use this card to get a summon for Castor. It's very nice because those starter cards are not a choke point, so you're able to just extend if it gets hit by a hand trap. You will either get Sagnag for Castor or Castor gets you Sagnag, and then you'll still get Caduceus, which gets you the spell card. Now the second problem with this card is that it's a Stellarnova Bonds card. It's not a Constellar or Tellarknight card. This is a really big issue because Tellarknights have always had a problem being unable to search their Stellarnova cards. Tellarknights have a really strong counter trap in their archetype called Stellarnova Alpha. That card is insanely powerful, but it's unsearchable. This is kind of an issue because this means you can't get this card off the effect of Caduceus or Lyran. That's not the end of the world because you can still search cards like Skybridge or Constellar Tellarknight, which are both really strong cards. I definitely think the biggest problem with this card is that it's not a quick play. If this was a quick play, this card would be so good. Being searchable would also be good, but man, as a quick play, this card can either be a starter, an extender, or an interruption. Very few cards in the game can actually do all three of those things, so this card would have been almost perfect. The restriction on this card, only being able to summon Xyz monsters for the rest of this turn, does not matter. Yeah, you're locked out of some link plays, but I really don't think it's that bad considering that this card is just emergency teleport. For this combo, you only need two cards in your hand. One of them is Stellarnova Bond and a card to discard. You're going to activate Stellarnova Bonds and discard a card to special summon Castor from your deck, and that card will summon Sagnag, and that card will get you a search for Caduceus. You're going to special summon Caduceus and then get a search for Constellar Tellarknight. If you've ever seen a Constellar or Tellarknight combo, this is pretty much the optimal starter line that you always want to go through when you play this deck. Sagnag is really good because as you saw, I can summon the new Deltaros monsters that needs 3+ monsters, but Sagnag can treat itself as 2 materials. Deltaros will get us a search for Lyran, and we get an extra normal summon, so we can summon that card and search for Skybridge. We're able to summon Deneb off of Skybridge, and that will return Lyran to our deck. Deneb will get us a search for Altair, and we haven't used our normal summon yet, so we can summon that card. As you can see, this combo is pretty amazing because we get to save our normal summon for very late in the combo. Caduceus is also a really broken Xyz monster for Constellar and Tellarknight. What that card does when it's summoned is it adds a Constellar or a Tellarknight card from your grave to your hand, or you can add both of them. He also lets you copy the effect of a Constellar or Tellarknight monster when it's normal summoned by banishing the card from your deck, so essentially you get 2 casters in one turn, which is amazing because that card's just emergency teleport. Caduceus will let us summon Unu from the deck, and that card is a foolish burial for the archetype, so we can send Altarian from our deck to the grave. Another really cool thing about Sagnag is that it has an effect to target a light monster you control as well as this card and increase both of their levels by 1. This makes them level 5 so you can make a rank 5. It's very obvious that they want you to summon Pleiades, but a monster I think is better to summon is Chronomly Vimana. Vimana has 2 effects, but the most important one is definitely the second one. Vimana's second effect is very powerful because you can detach 2 materials from this card when your opponent activates a monster effect and negate that. This is a lot better than Giant Hand because that card was also an option, but that card can only negate monster effects on the field. Vimana can negate monster effects anywhere, but it doesn't get rid of the card, so Pleiades could also be justifiable here, but I think Vimana is just a bit better. Pleiades will bounce a card on the field, whereas Vimana negates, so I think that's a bit stronger. Another cool application is that we can make M7 on top of Deltaros, and that will bring back our Altarian from the grave, and now we can make Ptolemaeus. I know a lot of people have showed off the FTK with Ptolemaeus where you just skip your opponent's turn. That combo does work, and you can also do that in this combo. I just think it's kind of boring to show off FTKs. If this does end up being competitively viable, Konami's just going to get rid of it really quick, so I don't really think there's a point in me showing a combo for this. Instead, I'm just going to use Ptolemais to make Cyber Dragon Nova, and then I can make Cyber Dragon Infinity. This combo is pretty strong just for one card and a discard because you have a full board and you also get your Skybridge back, which is pretty important. When I was explaining the new spell card before, if Stellarnova Bond was a quick play card, you'd be able to summon Altarian from your deck. That would be incredibly powerful because that card pops cards equal to the number of light or dark Xyz monsters you control. On your opponent's turn, what you can do is flip up your Skybridge and summon a Tellarknight monster. It doesn't really matter which one you summon, but then you put a different monster back to your deck. Why this is relevant is because when you summon that monster, you'll be able to activate the effect of Altarian from the grave. That card will special summon itself back, and you'll have at least 3 light Xyz monsters on the field, so you get to pop 3 cards. The card is either a starter, an extender, or its interruption. I just kind of wish it was a quick play card because you could just set one on the opponent's turn to use its interruption. This card is still a very great addition to Constellar and Tellarknights. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Have a good one. Take care.